my name is Leah. Thank you for selecting my video about Father Coughlin. I hope you enjoy. Father Charles Coughlin is considered by some to have been the most influential figure in America during the Great Depression. Born in Ontario, Canada in 1891, Coughlin grew up in a religious family. According to many sources, Coughlin felt inclined to preach religion and studied to become a Catholic priest at St. Basil's Seminary. Shortly after finding his place, the congregation he was a part of began to change their belief system, prompting him to move to Detroit, Michigan, where he continued his career in religious preaching and education. Beginning in 1926, Coughlin began addressing the nation in weekly radio sermons, initially in response to the Ku Klux Klan cross burnings on church grounds. His broadcasts became wildly popular and were soon picked up by CBS Radio. At first, his sermons included his opinions on theology and lesson in catechism, but later shifted to be comprised solely of his political, social, and economic beliefs. The change in his sermons occurred simultaneously with and seemed to mimic the change in America as the Depression era moved in. Eventually, he developed and preached his own definition of social justice, which he believed would only come from radical monetary reform. At the peak of his tenure, 1/3 of the entire United States population tuned into his broadcasts weekly. Early in his career, Coughlin was an avid supporter of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He gave the nation two choices, Roosevelt or ruin. He believed that FDR's New Deal was key to saving the nation and that Roosevelt was being directed by God. He desired so strongly for Roosevelt's plan to succeed that he even threatened, if Congress fails to back up the president in his monetary reform, I predict a revolution in this country which will make the French Revolution look silly. In 1934, however, Coughlin's support for the president turned around. While many people opposed FDR for socialistic opinions, Coughlin agreed with these, but rather refused to support the reforms which he believed to be increasingly capitalist. In response, he founded the National Union for Social Justice, which offered support and rights to America's workers and opposed FDR's socialist financial reforms. By the mid-1930s, Coughlin's wholehearted support for the president turned into hatred, and he was even quoted referring to FDR as the great liar and betrayer. Around the same time period when the shift in his sermons became most apparent. In addition to his attacks against capitalism, Coughlin also made frequent anti-Semitic and anti-communistic remarks. He believed that Jewish bankers were responsible for the Russian Revolution and therefore the rise of communism. He stated that the Bolsheviks, the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, were empowered by the Jewish population. While Coughlin never denied his anti-communist beliefs, he did deny his anti-Semitism on numerous accounts. However, in other instances, his actions and words undoubtedly speak for themselves. For example, weeks after the Nazi attack Kristallnacht on November 9, 1938, Coughlin related the event to the massacre of Christians by Russian communists. He is quoted saying, "Jewish persecution only followed after Christians first were persecuted," denoting the gruesome nature and terror of the events. He desired to start an anti-Semitic movement in the United States, and said, "When we get through with the Jews in America, they'll think the treatment they received in Germany was nothing." At the time of his broadcast, the radical nature and large viewer base made Coughlin's opinions largely influential and popular. Millions of people were fascinated with his views and tuned in to hear him speak each week during this 1-hour time block. Leading up to the end of the decade, Coughlin's sermons became increasingly controversial and disapproved of by the Catholic chain of command. At first, he argued the First Amendment in order to be granted the freedom to continue to broadcast, but his airtime was eventually canceled. Despite the end of his fame, he continued to be a pastor until his death in 1979. The anti-capitalism, anti-communism, and anti-Semitism that he preached weighed heavily in the minds of this audience and likely still contribute to national and worldwide tension today. Would you like to continue learning about the social experience of the 1930s, or would you like to learn about politics, economics, or the arts?